micro, small, and medium enterprises sector and infrastructure. And those remain the priorities for the Tobago House of Assembly. We are excited in times like these because now we can actually go back and develop Tobago at a different type of momentum versus the last 20 odd years. So thank you very much for having us here. This presentation for us was exciting. We are quite pleased with what we have been allocated, and we look forward to progressing and building Tobago towards being the greatest little island on the planet. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Secretary Roberts. Let me add that the Dispute Resolution Commission made a recommendation of 4.03% to 6.9% of the national budget as of 2001. Between 2001 and present, we receive between 4.03% on the bottom end to the highest being 4.37% of the national budget. On average, prior to today, our receipt would have been 4.2%. Today we are at 5%. And let me break that down in simpler terms. It means that for every $100 spent on development in the country, $5 is spent in Tobago. Prior to today, the highest that had ever been was $4.37. And so you can see that what we have been asking for has actually not been a lot in the context of what the national spend on development has been. As a matter of fact, in the budget, the THA budget that was presented in June by Secretary Roberts, the request was for 5.9% of the national budget. So we are just shy of 0.9% of what we requested. And we understand the economic conditions that the country is in. And one of the things I must champion at the lectern today is that we have experienced over the last couple months improved communications with the central government. And that must be commended. The fact that we have a government that is willing to communicate. Even when we disagree, they are willing to hear our voices and to have it impact on national and government policy. More than that, before I take the questions, it is one thing to say that you love me. It's another thing to show me that you love me. And we think that this is a step in the right direction. Of course, there is always room for improvement. Of course, I probably would be leaping from the balconies here if it was at 5.9%. But this is definitely a step in the right direction, a good start, and one that we don't intend to retreat from as we ensure that we live out the true meaning of side by side, as the Prime Minister pointed out in her seminal message on the day she was sworn in as Prime Minister. And with that, I will take, sure.
If the media would allow me to make one last point. The minister kept saying promises made and promises kept. And I met with the minister before the budget presentation, just after they came into office at the mid-year review, and again just before this budget exercise. And as you know, we requested 5.9%, and he did indicate what the financial challenges are. And then he said to us, what can we negotiate? And I want to say that he kept his promise in terms of the amount that was allocated to Tobago. I also want to make another point in terms of the allocation that we received for fiscal 2025. Usually, over the last, I would say, decade, we have not been receiving our allocations on a whole. So it means that if Tobago was allocated $100, we'd always be short at the end of the year. And we brought those things to the former Minister of Finance attention, and he totally ignored us. So this year, for the first time and I'm sure we haven't done the exact numbers, but I know it's more than 10 years. We have received every single cent according to the parliamentary appropriation. And I also want to commend the government for keeping their word and keeping their promises. Thank you.
And just before the questions, I want to thank the Honorable Prime Minister for having an open door policy when it comes to communicating with the Tobago House of Assembly. Act 40 of 1996 says that the Prime Minister and the Chief Secretary must have regular meetings. We don't meet as frequent as we would hope because of other circumstances, but we certainly do communicate much more frequently than my previous experience, and I need to say that. Also, before the questions, I want to point out that there are some areas that the members of Parliament for Tobago East and West will elaborate on in the House. I must thank them publicly because they, as members of Parliament and non-cabinet members, advocated for Tobago to get what Tobago got today. And I must commend the MPs for Tobago East and West for job well done. But as the debates roll on, starting on the 17th, the MPs will explore areas such as the A&R Robinson International Airport, Scarborough Secondary School, the Stolly Park Enterprise Limited and the outstanding export license, the land license regime. They will also explore the pathway to autonomy, which for us is singularly the most important and strategic element for Tobago's development. And that pathway includes two key areas, one of which is to ensure that we are fulfilling all aspects of the current legislation and seeing ways in which we can broaden that while at the same time or simultaneously consulting with Tobagonians for new and expanded legislation for the Tobago House of Assembly. Our MPs will also discuss matters of coastal protection, and we are currently going through the rudiments with CAF, and that a $100 million program for coastal rehabilitation. Let me be clear here, because I know that there will be mischief makers in this space. Tobago's European CPEP program continues as we have it. In fact, Tobago is quite advanced in its CPEP and URP program. When we came into office in 2021, we restructured, we increased the salaries for CPEP and URP above what is paid here in Trinidad. We provide some additional benefits, such as time off and leave and so on, as we begun to regularize them and create a much more sustainable program for them. We have European workers now who are into extensive farming, helping with the issue of food security on the island. And so Trinidad has almost always had a different European CPEP program to Tobago. In fact, in Tobago, we don't utilize contractors to manage our European CPEP. We pay our European CPEP workers directly, not through any contractual arrangement with anyone. And that's important. Our MPs will also look critically at the MPICTT, which is the government's proposed new platform for all payments that must be made to the government, with a view of underscoring Act 40 of 1996 and the fact that all government revenues for all activity in Tobago should be paid in Tobago and should be retained by the Tobago House of Assembly. They will continue to go through on our behalf the issue of strategic selectivity and what our priority areas are. They will explore what the deficit means, and I am surprised at how low the deficit is, given the amount of goodies the minister dished out. They will look deeper at the Tobago Development Fund and the revolving loan program, the expansion of our healthcare services on the island, and generally the general issues that we have in terms of lowering construction costs and what that means for Tobago. I did a research in about 2018, 2019, and at that time, construction materials in Tobago was some 28% higher than here in Trinidad. So you can imagine what the removal of taxes at the core level, at the importation of some core products for construction materials, what that will mean for the Tobago homeowner that already pays more for home ownership and home construction. And so with that, I will like to take any question from members of the media present.
Well, you've said quite a lot. You and your Secretary of Finance have said quite a lot. So my question is, your answer to the critics out there that this allocation to Tobago might be a sweetheart deal, seeing that THA elections, we're on the verge of THA elections come 2026.
The truth is we could have gotten a sweetheart deal in fiscal 2025. We could have gotten a sweetheart deal for fiscal 2024. We could have gotten a sweetheart deal for fiscal 2022, going all the way back for the last 44 years of the Tobago House of Assembly. Unfortunately, for the last 10 years prior, we had a Tobagonian as Prime Minister and we did not get a sweetheart deal. Sometimes it takes a stranger to give you a sweetheart deal. I will accept it in an election year or a non-election year. And whether we got it or not, I am very confident we would have beaten them anyway. So, because we just beat them and we beat them again. So, I am not concerned about the criticisms therein. They had an opportunity to treat Tobago well, and they treated us as the outside picnic. Undeserving of the benefits of the family because somehow we are illegitimate. That's how we felt. And I'm happy that the government has changed the policy whereby the consideration is for a side-by-side approach. And let me hasten to say that if at any moment I think the government is doing something that is inimical to the interests of Tobago and Tobagonians, I certainly will speak about it. Because that's what family is about. Sometimes in family you have disagreements. So that doesn't mean that we won't have disagreements or there won't come a time that we will disagree publicly or privately. But as of now, I must commend the government for its approach and be very thankful for the so-called sweetheart deal. Sure?
Jewel Green Tobago updates in terms of the allocation. What would you say to those who are saying the 2.9 is what Tobago THA is getting in their hand while the other allocation is coming from the central government? So the 5% plus that you all are looking at isn't in cash in hand.
Well, actually,
the
actually the 5% is to the THA. When we consider the spend by other ministries, that goes up to over 6%. All I am considering now, and all we are concerning ourselves now with, is the 5%, because that is what it will be coming directly to the Tobago House of Assembly. For those to be expended by other ministries for works in Tobago, the MPs for Tobago East and West, they will advocate and move on behalf of Tobago. And let me give a quick example. When we did a cursory analysis of how the Ministry of National Security, for example, are spent in Tobago, we have found that in some years, the development, not recurrent expenditure, they will pay the salaries of the police officers and those in the defense force. But the development spend, we have found that in many years, the development spend in Tobago from ministries like the Ministry of National Security was almost nil. And so we will have our MPs advocate to ensure that what ministries have responsibility for in Tobago, that they don't forget those responsibilities. But where the THA is concerned, we were just allocated 5%, and that's what we will concern ourselves with at this time.
In terms of the disbursement schedule, is it that you all are going to be dispersed this money on a quarterly, because the monthly disbursement is what the problem caused? So could you comment on that?
That's an excellent question. Act 40 of 1996 says that the disbursements to the Tobago House of Assembly should be quarterly en bloc in advance, meaning that at the start of every quarter, every fiscal quarter, we should receive a quarter, essentially, of what was allocated. So this 5%, this almost $3 billion, really and truly should just be split into four. And at the start of every quarter, we should receive that. That has not happened in more than 10 years for the Tobago House of Assembly. The result of that is that the THA is now the holder of the single largest overdraft facility in all of FCB's operations. Over $250 million in overdraft facility we have at FCB. That is uncollateralized, which means that when we receive the monies late, then we have to use the overdraft facility and then we pay interest. And so the power of the dollar we receive, the spending power, is significantly diminished as a result. We moved from month to month to having at least 2 months in advance and then the third month in the quarter within the first 2 months to prevent the use of the overdraft facility. We are still pushing with Minister Tanku to see if we can get back to the ideal according to the law, which is quarterly on block in advance and in advance, because we don't want to have to use the overdraft facility, save and except we have emergencies on island that we just can't help it but utilize it. And I must reinforce the point though, that this fiscal year is the first time in perhaps over a decade that all of what was allocated for fiscal 2025 actually arrived in the THA in and around the 30th of September to close off the fiscal year. So that is also a sign, a positive sign of us moving in the direction we should be heading towards.
Are you expecting?
I just wanted to endorse the comment from the Chief Secretary with regard to that, because I've been having conversations with the Minister of Finance with regard to how we receive the allocations. Prior to 2021, the overdraft interest per year was between $8 to $10 million. When the Chief Secretary took office, that was reduced to $2 million a year. It's still at $2 million per year. But I've been having the conversations with the minister, and obviously we know that the country has a liquidity issue. He does intend, though, to improve that over time. We have already received the paper release, which tells us that the check is coming for October for 2 months. So we already have that, so we intend to see things improve over time.
Are we expecting with the transition from VAT to sales tax that prices in Tobago will now be more comparative with prices as they are on the island of Trinidad?
I will hope so. But of course, we'll have to depend on entrepreneurs using their conscience and operating with the framework of us treating with humanity. I think the Ministry of Finance and Inland Revenue will have to move post-haste to hire those compliance officers so that they can actually check in the stores. Because we really want the average person in Tobago to benefit from policies such as these. And it is no secret, despite some in the business community in Tobago trying to convince us otherwise, it is no secret that for some commodities, not all, but some commodities, it is much more expensive in Tobago than in Trinidad. And every effort that can be made to bring parity there will be welcomed by Tobagonians.
Finally, in terms of the URP, you rightfully said that URP in Tobago is being handled differently than it's being handled in Trinidad. Can we expect that there will be no URP CPEP layoffs coming forward?
Yes, you can anticipate that. As a matter of fact, when we came into office, we restructured, but we restructured at the top because we felt the structure was top-heavy. We had too many managers in the system, and that was unneeded. That was not needed. And in fact, since coming into office, we have added numbers to both CPEP and URP. But more than that, we have begun transitioning them away from just cutting grass. As you can see from regular updates from the Division of Infrastructure, for example, you see them with produce that they're about to take to World Food Day in Tobago. we inherited a URP that was constructing benches and coffins and furniture and so on, and that has been expanded. And so for us in Tobago, our URP program and CPEP program, they have been run differently, and we have created a safety net for our workers because we have a much more sustainable program than what existed in Trinidad. All right, if no other questions, let me leave some room for the other politicians in the building. Thank you very much. Tobago is out for now. Thank you. God bless you.